Thank you so much for joining us for another edition of All Angles. I'm Dion Jacksmill, and a very special welcome to our viewers on onespotmedia.com. One of the ways we recognize outstanding Jamaicans is, as in many other countries, by erecting statues. But there have been concerns in relation to some of those statues. Some have caused controversy. We're talking this evening about public art, and joining us in studio we have cultural analyst Dr. Carolyn Cooper. We also have with us Kenyan artist Mazola Mwashigadi, I do beg your pardon. We have as well Kamoy Enyu. She's a student at the Edna Manley College of Visual and Performing Arts. She specializes in photography and ceramics. And another student at the Edna Manley College, Errol Keane, is with us, who specializes in visual communications. Before we go to our guests, here's TVJ's Bashan Brown with this overview. I just heard Vashan say 2003, and I couldn't believe it in relation to the emancipation statues. I remember having discussions with Carolyn Cooper about that, and it wasn't only the nudity that people didn't like. A lot of people, and I think you included, Prof, felt that it was too static, that there wasn't enough energy or dynamism in the statue.
Well, my main concern was the nudity, because black people like to dress up, so to have emancipation represented by naked people was a complete travesty as far as I was concerned. Absolutely.
Well, let me ask Mazola to talk a little bit generally in terms of this issue of public art. To what extent should expectations of the public, you think, be taken into account?
You just called it public art because if, like the statue that we are going to talk about, if he had that in his own show in a gallery, it will be a different case because he can give his own interpretation. Now, when it comes to doing busts, which is actually a portrait, people have expectations. You can't do away with that because one, Garvey is a renowned person, his fieriness, and there have been a number of statues of Garvey. So when we look at this one, we have an expectation of what to see. So if we don't see it, then we are asking ourselves, what really happened? Before I came here, I had to ask my very young daughter, she will soon turn 8, and I showed her the photograph of what was done, and the number of different photographs of Garvey. Maybe I'll tell you the answer later. What she said.
Let me just say before I forget that we did invite the Dean of the Faculty of Humanities and Education at UA to speak to us. That's where the statue is located. The faculty was responsible for getting it erected. And the Dean, Professor Waibinte Warabuko, indicated that he was unable to join us this evening due to a prior engagement. Come on, let me ask you, what do you think? Is there, and to what extent do you hew to those public expectations as opposed to the artistic vision that an artist might have?
As Mr. Watson said, people have a lot of opinions about things, and as an artist there's a lot of pressure on you to feed the public opinion, despite the fact that this art is your own. When you are doing a public service, you are under more judgment than when you are doing something for yourself. So even if you could present images of Garvey looking exactly like that to the public and saying this is what I was working off of, if they've been so used to a different image of him being more robust and fuller in the face, they're going to say this is the Garvey that they know, and they're going to always find something to argue about. So
honestly, is that necessarily okay? Why should we necessarily, fall in line with that?
It's not a matter of falling in line. It's just a matter of people are always going to find something to nitpick about. Whether you do it the way they want it to be done or whether you do it the way you want to do it. So if Mr. Watson said he made this seeing that that's what he saw, even if someone else looks at the picture that he used as a reference and looked at the statue, they're still going to find something else to nitpick about, to complain about, to make him feel bad.
Trying to figure out what your position is.
Because
on the one hand, you're speaking of the expectations, and then you're using a word like nitpick.
Yeah. All right. My position, I feel, because Mr. Watson is a lecturer and I respect him, but I also understand why the public could argue about anything. But I just, honestly, I don't see the point in the arguing. I don't see the point in complaining about it. You can critique it, but going as far as to threaten him and all that is just completely unnecessary. It doesn't need to go that far.
Well, and I don't think anybody would argue with you. So let's stick to the point of the critiquing. You said you don't see the point in complaining. Why? If something is put up there and I don't like it.
Yeah, but I understand the complaining. Alright, I feel like I'm getting confusing. I understand the complaining. I understand why it's happening.
Yes.
But I just don't see the point of the excessive complaining. Because it's gotten to a point that I'm scrolling through comment sections and it's just slandering him for filth. It's just dragging him.
I'm trying to make a distinction, between
I honestly can't.
And threats and legitimate critique.
All
so
right.
let's stick with legitimate critique, because I think everybody would agree that defamation and threats are not okay.
Yeah.
So let's stick with legitimate
The
critique.
legitimate critiques, I understand them. I understand that people aren't going to like what he's putting out based on what they have seen of Garvey before. But at the same time, I can understand why Mr. Watson doesn't see the point of anybody critiquing him, because it's an art piece that he created. So you can't always argue, because art is subjective. Art is subjective to whoever is creating it. Everybody's going to have different viewpoints on it, whether or not it is morally right or wrong.
All right. Errol, let me go to you quickly. I'm nearly at break, so quickly.
Yes. All right. So I believe all art is public art, as in because art, by its very definition, is something created for public consumption. So it's more so the public that it was created for. So it's created in the space of UWI Mona campus for the faculty and students of UWI Mona, or is it for the nation of Jamaica? Is it more of a national statue, or is it more of a statue for that particular space?
Does it make a difference?
It kind of does make a difference, because it depends on the people who are viewing the work. So if you have somebody who is studying international relations, seeing the work, they're like, oh, okay, I can get this idea from it. So if you see someone studying something psychological related, or something about languages, like different people interpret works differently. So depending on the space that is put, you get different interpretations of the work.
All right, Prof. Cooper.
Well,
Caroline, what do you think?
the problem that I have with that particular image is that there's no power in it. It represents Garvey in a very you know, in a way that doesn't accord with general perceptions of Garvey as a man of power. Every time I go and look at it, it seems to get worse. I went and looked at it again today, and the word that came to my mind is that Garvey just looks pitiful. You know, you feel sorry for him. You know, there's no sense of power. And that, to me, is not so much that it doesn't look like him. I have problems with the nose. The nose is not Garvey's nose. I don't know which picture the artist used. And I mean, there are so many possibilities. Why would you choose that particular image? And I really want to talk about who commissioned the work. Because it's not just that the artist did the work and somebody went and said, oh, this is a nice Garvey, let's put him up.
Someone have to double check. Yeah, exactly.
So did nobody ask him, you know, give him a brief to say, this is what we want?
And they can't throw him under the bus.
You know, if you're going to work off a picture, this is the kind of picture we think you should be using. This is the image that we want to see represented.
Exactly.
As something to inspire people.
As an icon.
Yes.
And even before it was being unveiled to the public, they must have agreed with him and paid him.
Exactly.
So
it's not on him.
Yes.
Somebody signed off and said that this is good.
Yes. So somebody must have signed the check.
Right. Hold that thought for me. Going to pick up on some of those issues when we come back after this break. And remember our hashtag, it is TVJ, all angles do weigh in.